Hello everyone, my name is Samvel Karapetian and welcome to Eurasian Express, a YouTube channel dedicated to geopolitics, history, security, languages and cultures, as well as ongoing events and developments across Eurasia. Today, we're going to discuss what I think may become one of the most significant defeats by Vladimir Putin, faced by Vladimir Putin, suffered by Vladimir Putin in the post-Soviet space in recent months. The topic of today's presentation is Putin lost in Armenia and how voters in Armenia rejected pro-Russian, pro-Kremlin, pro-Moscow opposition. At first glance, Armenia's parliamentary election of June 7, 2026 may look like an ordinary democratic exercise, but it was not. It was a vote, I would say, on Armenia's geopolitical future. Would Armenia continue distancing itself from Moscow and getting closer to the West? Or would it remain in the Russian orbit? Or I would say, would it return to the Russian orbit that had shaped much of its post-Soviet history after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991? The answer given by Armenian voters looks very clear. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinian's civil contract party won the election with almost 50% of the vote, according to preliminary official results announced by the Central Election Commission. The main opposition force, the strong Armenia bloc led by Russian-Armenian billionaire and businessman Samvel Karapetian, came second with about 24%. Former President Robert Kocharian's Hayastan alliance received almost 10%. Businessman Gagik Tsarukyan's prosperous Armenia narrowly missed the parliamentary threshold with slightly less than 4%. The remaining 14 parties failed to enter parliament. They didn't make it. As a result, Armenia's next parliament will be dominated by three political forces: civil contract, strong Armenia, and Hayastan. The significance of these results lies not only in who won, but also in who lost. The main opposition parties represented political forces favoring closer relations with Moscow. Samvel Karapetian built much of his business empire in Russia and clearly openly advocated restoring strategic cooperation with the Kremlin. Robert Kocharian has long been regarded as Armenia's most pro-Russian politician. During his presidency, Armenia's alliance with Russia reached unprecedented levels. Many of his supporters argued that Armenia's security can only be guaranteed through close partnership with Moscow. Although the opposition camp consisted of several different groups, most of them criticized Pashinian's attempts to reduce Armenia's dependence on Russia and opposed his efforts to deepen ties with Europe. For many observers, therefore, the election became a contest between two competing visions. One vision pointed toward Brussels and Washington, the other pointed toward Moscow. The outcome was a major disappointment for the Kremlin. Unlike European leaders who quickly congratulated Pashinian, Russian President Vladimir Putin noticeably refrained from doing so. Instead, the Kremlin adopted a cautious and critical tone. "We are waiting for the final results," Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalists after the vote. Peskov also pointed to what he described as numerous irregularities during the election campaign and voting process. The criticism became even sharper when Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova accused the Armenian government of what she called undermining democratic standards. According to Zakharova, the campaign took place amid unprecedented pressure on opposition parties, their activists and supporters. She also criticized what she described as attacks against the Armenian Apostolic Church and alleged Western interference. Zakharova went even further. While acknowledging Pashinian's victory, she stressed that civil contract party had not achieved a monopoly on power. More importantly, she claimed that public support for Pashinian and his party had declined noticeably compared with previous elections. The message from Moscow was unmistakable. The Kremlin was not celebrating. It was expressing concern, and that concern is very understandable. For decades, Armenia was considered Russia's closest ally in the South Caucasus. Russian troops were stationed on the Armenian soil. The country depended heavily on Russian security guarantees. Armenia is still a member, although formally, of the Collective Treaty Security Organization and Eurasian Economic Union, two groupings led by the Russian Federation. Yet that relationship began to unravel after the collapse of Armenian control over Nagorno-Karabakh. When Azerbaijan re-established its control over the breakaway territory in 2023, and more than 100,000 ethnic Armenians fled the region, many Armenians felt abandoned by Russia. Many Armenians felt betrayed by Moscow because Russia had peacekeepers on the ground. Russia was Armenia's treaty ally, yet it didn't intervene. For many Armenians, it was a turning point. The traditional belief that Russia would always protect Armenian interests was shattered. Pashinian capitalized on this shift in public opinion. His government froze Armenia's participation in the Russia-led Collective Security Treaty Organization. It expanded cooperation with the European Union. It strengthened relations with the United States and openly discussed the possibility of eventual European integration. Not surprisingly, these policies deeply alarmed Moscow. In several months before the election, Russian-Armenian relations deteriorated sharply. Russia imposed de facto restrictions on many Armenian exports. Armenian producers, mostly exporters of food and agricultural products, complained that access to the Russian market had become increasingly difficult, almost impossible. The timing was widely interpreted as political pressure. During the campaign, Pashinian openly criticized the restrictions. Moscow, however, made it clear that future relations would depend on what it called real steps taken by the Armenian leadership. Zakharova warned that Armenia should avoid policies that could lead to further division and socio-economic instability. Meanwhile, the opposition rejected the election results. Strong Armenia accused the authorities of forcing public sector employees to vote for civil contract and alleged widespread electoral violations. Hayastan also challenged the results. Robert Kocharian accused the government of abusing administrative resources, intimidating opponents, and manipulating the electoral process. Both opposition parties said they will contest the results in court. The prosperous Armenia party likewise questioned the official vote count, claiming that ballot recounts had already revealed significant discrepancies. On June 9, though, the prosecutors in Armenia announced that they launched a criminal case against Gagik Tsarukyan, the leader of the prosperous Armenia party. The charges are about tax evasion. Whether these allegations will produce any kind of street protests remains uncertain. But what is clear is that the election exposed a deeply divided Armenia. Yet, despite those divisions, the broader geopolitical message appears unmistakable. The parties advocating closer alignment with Moscow failed to convince a majority of Armenian voters. The party advocating a more independent and increasingly European-oriented foreign policy remained in power. For Vladimir Putin, this represents more than an electoral setback. It is another indication that Russia's influence across the former Soviet Union continues to erode. Of course, Armenia will not break with Russia overnight. It's not possible. The two countries remain deeply connected economically, culturally, and historically. Russian military forces remain present in Armenia. Russia remains an important trading partner. But geopolitics is often not about destination. It is about direction. And the direction chosen by Armenian voters appears increasingly clear. For that reason, many observers view this election not merely as another victory by Nikol Pashinian. They see it as a significant defeat for Vladimir Putin, a defeat that reflects a much larger transformation taking place across the post-Soviet space. Thank you for watching. Again, my name is Mirhat Sharibjan and you watched Eurasian Express, a YouTube channel about events and developments across Eurasia. If you enjoyed this analysis, please subscribe to my channel, leave your comments below, and share this video with friends interested in geopolitics and Eurasian affairs. See you next time. Bye-bye.